Hey everyone, I am a man of my word. I am here with the gameplay video for our Barbarian Seismic Slam demonstration for Greater Rift 50 Plus. If you have not seen the actual build guide, I will link to that below in the description. But for now, we're just going to take a look at how this actually goes. Again, I am calling it 50 Plus. So, to prove my point, we'll go to 51 since that is, plus. So, let's get in here and get things started. Obviously, when we get in, we just need to put out our Call of the Ancients, get our buffs going. So again, we want to use our focus and restraint very effectively. So just every once in a while, just spam out the weapon throw, and then just Seismic Slam all day. Again, nice part about this build, you can kite very effectively. So as you can see, I'm actually getting hit by very few things. It's just my Templar and my Call of the Ancients that are up there, actually tanking most of it. These guys can jump on me a little bit, but so you can see, really not a big deal at all. Just get here and take care of everything from a distance, keeping myself safe, which is really the big benefit of this build. Now, I guess, I was thinking about doing it at the end of this video, but you know what? I think I'll do it during the gameplay, give you guys something entertaining. Because I know you want to see the gameplay a bit, but at the same time, just watching an entire Rift can get a little boring after a while. So, I do want to talk about this build versus Hammer of the Ancients, and hopefully I don't get myself too distracted and get myself killed along the way here. But the reason why I think it's a reasonable comparison is because they're both taking advantage of the new IK set, of the, or the buffed IK set, I should say, is really what it is. So what you're looking at, as I said, this build is safer because you can stay at a distance, you are chilling things. I'm going to try to stop clicking on that to, yeah, okay. Just kind of going crazy with my mouse cursor here. So, they are both taking advantage of the buffed IK set. They do both have a lot of damage to offer. Now, if you're watching, you'll see that I'm actually critting for 2.5 to 3 billion pretty often. The damage numbers on this build, when I do remember to keep my Wrath of the Berserker up anyway, are higher. You will see higher numbers with this build compared to Hammer of the Ancients. Plus, it actually does have more AoE damage than Hammer of the Ancients. So for both of those reasons, plus the fact that, as I said, it is a much safer build, there are definitely advantages to the Seismic Slam build. Now, with that said, and I'm going to save my final conclusion about the builds until the end of the video. Give you a little reason to stick around, I guess. The Hammer of the Ancients build does attack faster. So while you do get higher damage numbers with the Seismic Slam build, like I don't think I've really seen, maybe more than once or twice, a 3 billion crit with my Hammer of the Ancients build. Fully geared out for the Seismic Slam, I've gotten quite a few, between 2.5 to 3. I see it much less often with the Hammer of the Ancients build. So your numbers will be higher with the Seismic Slam build, but you do attack more slowly. So you'll kind of have to work out exactly where your DPS is there. But as I said, Seismic Slam build does have more AoE damage, which is nice. You do have more safety, which is nice. With the Hammer of the Ancients build, I'm kind of always teetering between doing massive amounts of damage and kind of dying. Again, partially that's just my gear, because there's actually a few pieces of gear that didn't roll the way I wanted and that should have Vitality on them and don't. Actually, since the last video, I changed out my bracers with the First Men. I got Ancient ones with Vitality on them. They are slightly lower damage, but I was willing to make that trade-off because of the Vitality, especially on Ancient ones, because the Vitality roll will be higher. So, that's really what you're looking at between the two of them. Hammer of the Ancients is more risky, but might have, but it does attack faster. Plus, you do get the. Alright, I should probably have Wrath of the Berserker. If you ever want to know if you're forgetting that to activate your Wrath of the Berserker when it's off cooldown, just notice if you stop dealing damage. If you notice that suddenly things are not dying, you forgot to reactivate Wrath of the Berserker. That's the way that I've looked at it. I try to pay attention, but I don't know. I always have this habit of forgetting. And yeah, just make sure your buffs are up. Like, I just kind of forgot that my Warcry wasn't active there, so yeah. So to stop comparing the two builds for a second, and I know I kind of left off in the middle of my sentence, but I don't remember what I was saying, so we're just going to continue here. You're really, I have found actually the shift key to be a very good friend to me in this build, so that I can just toss out my weapon throw and my seismic slam without worrying about clicking precisely. My mechanics, as it were, are somewhat subpar, but the shift key is definitely your friend. Makes that a lot easier. We'll put that out there. So I will say that it's a little bit tougher to keep up permanent Wrath of the Berserker with this build, because you do have to stop sometimes and mix in that weapon throw to get your Fury generation back up. There's a conduit pile, and that'll help a little bit. Plus, with the Hammer of the Ancients build, because you get back more Fury than the skill costs when you use it on 3 or fewer enemies, and that includes on 0 enemies, so you can just spam it on nothing. If you do run out of Wrath of the Berserker before your cooldown is back, you can literally just sit there smacking the ground with your hammer, and you'll get your Wrath of the Berserker back, which is super nice. You don't have that option with this build. But here you can see, like, there's the Arcane Sentries. If I was using the Hammer of the Ancients build, I'd have to just get up in there and try to figure out a way to not die. With the Seismic Slam build, I was able to just kite back, never even really have to worry about getting hit by any of it. So, especially as you go up in Greater Rifts, like, you really are worried about survivability. It's very important. So, because you can deal all the damage in the world, but if you're dead, you're dealing 0 damage, right? So, that's a big thing. And that is definitely one of the advantages to this build. Now, you see that I was running around a bit, so my Wrath of Berserker was gone, and it was only, maybe 2/3 of the way off cooldown. So I will have to, first when that happens, sit here, use my Seismic Slam to spend the Fury to get it back, even though I'm really not dealing much damage without Wrath of the Berserker active. So it is something that, you will have to do sometimes, but, ideally, you won't have to spend too much time without it. For the most part, it's almost permanent. Hammer of the Ancients build, it's pretty much just permanent. This build, it's almost permanent. You see it actually ran out a little bit there. Had to wait. Again, I do want to demonstrate what my Fury is doing. There's times where it's going down a lot, and then there's times where it is staying pretty much full. And those times where it's staying full is, I believe, because I'm using the Tasker and Theo on my Kanai's Cube to make sure that my Ancients are attacking faster. I'm sorry to keep pausing. I actually have a really bad sore throat, but I really wanted to do this video, so I'm sorry to keep having to pause for a second. But because of the Tasker and Theo Cube, my Ancients are attacking faster, which does help keep up the Fury. So for this build specifically, I think Tasker's actually okay. I'm not 100% sure if it is the single best piece of armor to cube. You see what I'm talking about? I have the option to kite back here, and I'm just sitting here, pretty much in melee range. I don't know, it's probably just habit, I guess. I've played a lot of the melee classes. I used to play a lot of the monk. I'm actually trying to get back to that. But, when I play the barb, it's always been, either whirlwinds or, I did the Hammer of the Ancients build, so it was always melee. So it's a habit that I'm in, and I need to remember that one of the reasons why this build is good is because I don't have to do that. It's important. So remember that. You don't have to be melee. Yeah, don't forget like I do all the time. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much, you know, how the build works. Once we finish this pack, we are gonna be at the Rift Guardian. Again, I missed the fact that my Wrath of Berserker was down, but the fact that I just stopped dealing damage told me pretty quickly that that I needed to reactivate it. Where is... There it is. That's what I was looking for, but it didn't even matter. Alright, so now we'll see the Rift Guardian. I'm actually not going to be starting with Wrath of Berserker, which is annoying. So Perendi's actually cool here, because he's going to demonstrate how easy some of these Rift Guardians are with the Seismic Slam build, because he is 100% kiteable. Like, his whole thing is run up to you and try to slam you for pretty much your entire health pool. But I can just kite around him. I don't even have to get hit by that stuff. And Seismic Slam has a decent range on it. And because I can kite him, now I actually do have more or less permanent Wrath of Berserker. I will still throw out a weapon throw every once in a while, just for the, you know, the Fairy Generation's still nice, and also for the Focus and Restraint. And you can see I don't have to get hit by anything. If I do, it's really just my fault in mispositioning. But I don't have to get hit by anything right now. You know, sometimes with the Rift Guardians, you do. A lot of them will have dashes or just other nastiness they can do to you. Perendi fortunately doesn't, but if he gets to you, will do just an absolute ton of damage. So I can kite him, I can kite his little guys here. I don't have to get hit by anything. And that's really, really nice. And you see how much they get slowed for between the Cold Rune and the Ice Blink Gem. Like, you see, like, they start to run towards me, and then it's like they almost stop. They can barely move after that, which is really, really nice. Again, the extra 10% crit chance is also beautiful from the Ice Blink. So there you go. Easy, easy peasy. So that is our build. Again, I will link to the actual guide, so you can see gear, Paragon points, skill distribution, all that. I will put that in the description. For those who missed it, I will also link to the Hammer of the Ancients guide. I do think it's worth comparing the two. I think I pretty much went over all the differences. I did promise you guys at the end of the video I would give my opinion on which build I prefer. Overall, I like the Hammer of the Ancients build a little bit better. I've found it to be a little bit easier to work with, but that might also just be my playstyle. Again, I do have a habit of, even with these range builds, of somehow getting myself into melee range constantly. So if you're a little bit better at kiting than I am, I think this build actually might work better for you. The damage is very high. Very high. It does offer more safety. Again, the downsides, it's a little bit harder to keep up permanent Wrath of the Berserker. You do have to be more mindful of your positioning, because with the Hammer of the Ancients, you want to be melee range anyway, so, like, you do have to be aware if you are standing in, you know, 5 different things from an elite pack, you're probably going to die. But you have to be melee range regardless. You do have the mobility. With Furious Charge, there is no mobility skill in this build, so your positioning, your ability to kite is very, very important. However, it does offer a lot of crowd control. It does offer a lot of damage. If you play around with it, if you like a build that's a little bit ranged, you want to play a barb, but you know you feel like maybe you are a little bit too squishy, you are dying a little too much, and you wanted to try something a little different, I definitely think this build is for you. For those that are doubting how effective this build is, since I only finished with whatever it was, 3.5 minutes left on 51, you want to know how high you can actually get, I'm going to prove to you this build is actually pretty darn effective, and here's why. You'll notice I talked about getting Seismic Slam damage from both your helm and your boots, but unlike every other piece of my gear, I didn't hover over it. The reason for that, I still have Hammer of the Ancients damage on both my helm and my boots. That is 30% damage increase to Seismic Slam that you can have that I don't currently have, and I easily got through 51. Was not a problem at all. So if you want to know how effective this build actually is, there you go. I just sacrificed 30% damage to my Seismic Slam, and was never even a little bit worried about this rift. So, there you go. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, check out the build guide, check out the Hammer of the Ancients build as well. I actually am planning on doing something a bit different. I'm going to be highlighting a non-barbarian build, hopefully next week. I don't have all the gear that I need yet. Kadala has been incredibly unkind to me to an unusual degree, even for someone like me who usually doesn't have much luck with drops. She has been surprisingly unkind. If she decides to change her mind and start giving me some of the stuff that I need, it will be much faster. But yeah, hopefully sometime next week, look forward to a non-barbarian, I know, crazy, guide for another 50 plus Greater Rift. So again, hope you guys enjoyed. Do you have any questions, comments, feedback? Definitely want to hear it. Really, hope you guys are getting something out of these videos. If there's anything I can do to improve them, please let me know. But I hope to see you guys next time.